Ah, here we are, indeed! Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 1.0.5, actually. Gonna do plane reviews, and this will be the last episode in 1.0.5 from here on out, at least until the next version. I'll be using 1.1.2. Before we get started, I have a couple things I want to say, but those of you who will get annoyed and inevitably leave me comments about being annoyed by that, just skip ahead with the thing on the screen. It tells you what time to skip ahead to. Also, if the video spontaneously just jumped up in quality, that's because I accidentally started recording in 720p and I'm now recording in 1080. Shh, that didn't happen. So yeah, like I said, a couple things I wanted to say real quick before I get started. One of them is that, why are there no good earbuds anymore? No, seriously. Like, okay, earbuds. I require earbuds that are, earbuds, have volume controls, and have a mic and a mute button, right? And a play, pause, slash mute, slash call, slash, the button. Those mics don't seem to exist anymore, at least not in my local Target or Walmart. All they have are crap or extremely expensive. That's also kind of crap. Why is this a thing? This should not be a thing. I remember when you could get good headphones, good earbuds for $25 that have that. Why is that not a thing anymore? Also, I want to apologize for this video being a day late. I was going on a TeamSpeak server and hanging out with some British people who may or may not be listening to this now. Hi. Cause Nerd Cubed, he did this thing where he's like, oh, the Nerd Cubed study group or something like that, whereas essentially go on this TeamSpeak and talk about science and mathematics and stuff like that and study, which was pretty cool. We talked about mitosis and calculus a little bit and something else, gravity and quantum mechanics, like just various things, because I kind of flitted around between different channels and then we mostly ended up just chatting, but it was nice. Another thing I wanted to say is Overwatch. I probably will make maybe one more video, but I'm not actually sure because I may or may not get some more recording done. I've definitely played it more than I've recorded it, and I'm starting to get a little better at it. My initial recording had some issues, as you might have noticed in the video I did publish. I tried to cut out most of the parts where it didn't record properly, but a little bit got in there. Essentially, Overwatch is unfortunately just at the threshold where I'm not sure I can really record it anyhow, and you can probably get better quality videos elsewhere, especially as I'm not that good at it. So I may or may not make another video or two, and I definitely enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I can't afford to get it, so once this free beta weekend is over, that's it for me unless someone gets it for me or I come across money. Also, a tiny rant I want to say before I get started. Logic, people. Logic. I had a video where I complained about the suspension being a bit broken on wheels in 1.1, and a lot of people were like, no, you just don't know how to use wheels. And I'm sorry, but if you have something load onto the runway and it starts spontaneously moving back and forth, oscillating, gaining more and more energy until it eventually explodes, that's a bug. That is not me incorrectly using wheels, okay? I just don't understand how you could think that putting a vessel on the runway with no control input and it suddenly bouncing higher and higher until it crashes is not a bug. How, whatever. Anyhow, let's actually get started. Oh, apparently I can't use these. What? Quiz Tech? But I have Quiz Tech. What? Yeah, apparently I'm missing Quiz Tech and KAX, which is Kerbal Aircraft Expansion. Okay, I am legitimately missing KAX. Well, shit. Why do you re-download the patcher every time I launch you? Makes no sense. And in any case, I've now correctly installed KAX and reinstalled QuizTech since apparently it wasn't loading properly. While this is reloading, I'd like to thank those of you who have had patience with me, because I am a mental fuck-up sometimes. So, yeah. And I hate to make light of a bad situation, but no, I'm completely serious. I'm a mental fuck-up sometimes. Quite often, in fact, unfortunately. Theoretically, you'll actually be seeing an example of that sometime soon, as I got really upset one day and made a game about depression. It has some kinks to be worked out, and it's not really 100% finished, but it's kind of mostly there, and, well, yeah, it's depression. It's depressing. Speaking of games, I did actually make something and release it. It's just a little drawing tool, but essentially it came from the same day when I was feeling really depressed, and I was just like, I'm gonna make a drawing tool where the lines are erased as you continue to draw, because nothing you do ever lasts, or matters. Yeah, kinda depressing. I'm kinda sorry for making you wait through this with me a little bit by talking over it, but I did want to get some things out there. So, they still won't load, so screw 'em. This is the F-78 Stalker. This is by Battery. And, oh, that's interesting. You use the Big S Elevon 2s as a main wing structure. I actually really like how that looks. It's actually a very smooth position. Like it's slightly bumpy, like it's there's a big bump relative to the wing in front of it, but it does look pretty sweet actually. So as you can tell, it's a fighter, obviously, and it's kind of stuffed together a bit. And we'll go ahead and it's a bit like an F-35 actually. Okay, no description there. He might have the action groups listed on Kerbal X. Yes, he does. And here we are with that turret. Don't question its existence. And I believe, let's see, oh, we don't actually have an action group for switching the engine modes. That's interesting. It also doesn't seem to have thrust vectoring enabled. That is also interesting. Slightly splayed landing gear. That probably actually works better in 1.1.2. I'm not sure though, I haven't tried it fully yet. I haven't tried this in it, of course. And 1 arms the system, 2 dispenses chaff, 3 dispenses flares, 4 goes to the next weapon. And yep, I thought so. Of course I can click to fire the weapons, but oops. But this actually doesn't, that's the wrong button. This doesn't actually have a action group set up to fire things, which is different from how I usually do it, but hey, whatever. And it flies fairly well. Actually, yeah, it's flying pretty well. I like it. It looks good and flies well. The only thing I dislike is, of course, the clipped landing gear, because I dislike clipping, but overall, I'm not letting it get to me that much because, well, if you're new to the series, you didn't know that I hate that, but if you're not, then you know I do hate it, and there's no point in me mentioning it again because you just get mad at me. Unfortunately, it's not the most maneuverable thing, however, it did work fairly well. Next up, we're taking a look at this KH-2 Huey. I almost said Huey, which I'm assuming it's based off of the Huey helicopter. I don't actually know what one of those looks like off the top of my head, although I would imagine it is fairly similar. I notice he's got main rotors clipped into each other, probably because one of them wouldn't give enough thrust on its own. And apparently has no action group set. Well, we're going to see just how terrible I can be at flying a helicopter then. And this actually, oh, these are two-bladed rotors, so this actually is, I can count 4, plus the tail rotor, 4 of these rotors in here all at once. Alright, here we are. It will roll on the runway slightly. Ooh, whoa. That took off really quick. Okay, let's throttle down the engines just a little bit. Ooh. Yeah. Get the helicopter sounds. And, oh yeah, it didn't tell me action groups on this one, so I'm just going to have to guess. Well, I've selected a weapon. That has fired it, so there we go. 2 to select weapons, 1 to fire. We're falling slightly, unfortunately. So I'm going to turn up the throttle just a little bit more. Meanwhile, continue firing my weapons, which all arc slightly upwards, interestingly. There we go. Those ones actually hit something. Oh, I'm out of weapons? What? Oh, come on, fire. No? You're not going to fire? I'm hitting the wrong button. That's why it's not firing. It's also not firing now that I'm hitting the correct button. Aim 9s are firing. The Hydra rockets. Ah, yes, beautiful. Let's just floor it. And do some stupid shit. Like fly sideways. While aiming at the administration building. Whoa. Oops, let's, oh shit. I'm trying to roll to compensate, and I can't. That made an interesting sound when I crashed. Ooh, and those blades make cool sparks. Oh, that's really cool the way that crashes. And fortunately not deadly either. We didn't crash that high a velocity, so it's okay. Wow. Those rotors got fucked up. Next up we have the all-important Space Turtle. Very, very important. Which I believe I tried to launch in the last little bonus episode where I was in 1.1 or 1.1 point something. But its landing gear fucked up, which is why I brought it back to 1.0.5. This time I'm going to be a bit more reasonable with how I try to take off with it. That time, because the landing gear was already fucked up, I decided to fire all the stages at once. This time I'm going to see if I can actually get it to take off with just these jet engines to start with, and then go from there. And hello, this is post-commentary me. Yes, that's the thing I haven't done in a long time, and essentially it's because this thing is extremely laggy. Like, I've sped up the video by 4 times speed now, that's what you're seeing here. So you can see I took off fairly well. I did activate the boosters before leaving the runway, and that was essentially because I started pulling up at like 60, 70 meters per second, and it just wasn't going up. So I decided, you know what, we're not getting enough speed fast enough, and I'm afraid we're not going to get off the ground if I don't activate these. So I decided to go ahead and activate them, and it got us up to, I think, 110, 120 meters per second before leaving the runway. Then I decided to kind of give us a nice profile view from the side as we arced up a little bit, and I noticed that the staging implies that we have probes on board, because I forgot. Yes, there are these probes in here, and you can see all the staging there does indeed activate those probes. So I went ahead and took a look at that, and then decided I'd better close that. Then I went to see, oh yes, then I went and activated the main engine when the solid rocket boosters burned out, and I kind of focused on pitching it up a bit more and tried to get it back on center a little bit more, but unfortunately I couldn't really do that effectively, and I just focused on, okay, let's go up. And then I went over to my other monitor and took a look at, whatchamacallit. I was trying to see if it said anything about action groups, which it did not, so I was like, well, thanks, I guess, because I was wondering if maybe there's a quicker way to open and close those cargo bays than trying to right-click while the game's being extremely laggy. As you can see here, I'm starting to level out the ascent profile a little bit, and I'm also trying to pitch a little bit towards 90, but I'm not going to really try for it that hard. I'm just going to try and always keep us on the center of our velocity or to a little bit to the left. Also, you can see I was checking the thrust on the turbojets at that point because I knew we were getting up pretty close to the height of how high they could keep firing. You can see we're getting a little bit of heat effects, a little bit. I was about to call them re-entry effects, but since we're leaving the atmosphere, I figured that wouldn't be appropriate, even though that's what they're typically called. And yeah, I decided I'm going to pitch up a little bit harder, and then I was kind of like, I'm getting tired of these taking forever to burn out. Also, I tried to look at the airflow and the resources because I momentarily forgot that they took that out of there. And I looked at them again, I went, yeah, screw it, let's just pitch up, and they'll burn out pretty quickly here. And it did take a little bit longer than I thought it would, but there you go. We can see we've burned those out. And I'm going to skip just a little bit ahead to where I dropped the main engine. And as you can see here, I am releasing the probes, taking a look at that, and just deciding to ditch everything. And then I flipped it over and started pulling up as hard as I could, just continuously pulling up as hard as I could because I wanted to get back down as quickly as possible, and that required, of course, you know, making as big an air brake as possible, which is why I was doing that, trying to get into the lower atmosphere as quickly as possible. It was a little bit difficult to control, primarily because of the lag, but also this thing has pretty darn good, surprisingly good roll authority. As you can see, I just kind of pulled it around and looped, and then very carefully kind of leveled off. Considering I'd never flown this thing before, I was pretty happy with the fact that I managed to pull out of that super steep dive by timing it pretty much perfectly to where I leveled out at about 100 meters and then gently touched down in the water. And the Orca shift, which I'll be honest, I have no idea where this came from. I don't know. I have it in my folder, so obviously I had a reason, but no idea. Looks cool. Alright, here we go. No idea what the action groups may or may not be on this one. It does have adjustable landing gear though, so that's awesome. Alright, let's get up in the air. Let's hit 1. 1 is an afterburner. Very nice. Let's hit 2. That turned off the afterburner? Turned it back on. Okay, that's interesting. 3 did something. Oh, it took out the little tiny engines, I believe. Alright, is this supposed to have a VTOL? Does it have a VTOL? No, it doesn't. Nope, that is chaff. That is 4. 5 is flares. Ooh, nice pattern. 6 has selected us a weapon. I'm guessing 7. Yep, 7 will fire it. Aim 9s, S comms, or S8 comms. Very, very fast rockets that fire there. And does not fire the gun, however. Alright, there we go. And of course, from here we can... Ah, beautiful. I love BD Armory. Alright, let's get this nice and low. From the cockpit view, no less. Oh shit, that's a bit lower than I meant. Okay. Ooh, I don't know how quickly this thing can pull up. Pretty quickly. Alright, no worries there. Too bad I don't have anything to radar lock with, else that would be useful. Alright, pulling up. Very nice. Have no idea what this button does. Oh, fires the pylons away. Cool. Alright, well, the Orca shift. I like it, whoever made it. Sorry about that. Don't know where it came from. Alright. Let's do what is only right. And crash it into a research building. By flying sideways. Ooh, I slightly missed. Close enough. Didn't actually blow up the building, though. And the game crashed. Alright, one of the last two. This is by M. Samuels, and I briefly tried it in 1.1, and it broke horribly because of the broken suspension, which has now been mostly fixed, by the way, but not entirely. Ah, yes. Very nice. And, come on. Oh yeah, your landing gear are too far back. That's the only problem. It is kind of funny to be able to do that, though. Oh dear, that's gonna go badly. Yup. Ooh, look, part of it took off. Huh. Oh my god, that's great. What is that? Oh, it's a wing. Of course it's a wing. Ooh, it survived. It survived multiple impacts. Ooh, look at that. Skidded to a stop. Almost completely destroyed. Beautiful. Okay, a slightly more serious attempt at flight this time. But yeah, your landing gear should be closer to the center of mass to keep it from... what's the word? From not being able to pivot and take off. Of course, this one pivots and takes off fairly well once you build up a little bit of speed. But realistically, you don't need to do that. Also, I just noticed something. Oh, it's a shot cone intake. Duh. I feel dumb now. For some reason, my brain was thinking that was an engine. Probably because it's placed on there backwards like an engine would be. Yeah, that's my excuse. I'm going to go with that. But in any case, here we are. It goes very fast, as you'd expect. Let's see how well it does with extreme maneuvering. Once we get a little bit faster, I want to just basically get it up to a maximum speed that it'll get to, and then just pull up very sharply and see what it does. Oh, it has solar panels on the top, so even if you're not running the engines, you can be okay. In any case, it seems to be almost peaking at Mach 1, so we're just going to go ahead and pull it up just really hard. Very nice. Holds together. Yeah. Not much more to say about that. It's fairly maneuverable. It's very fast. Not the most maneuverable, but I don't think it has to be. It'd be better if it had slightly better yaw control, but that's the downside of the V. The vertical... What do you call this again? I don't remember what that's called, where you have a V tailplane rather than having separate horizontal and vertical stabilizers. Now I'm going to get comments for the next 2 months of people telling me what the answer is. And this is the Maverick, also by M. Samuels. Obviously a crude craft this time. Not crude as in bad, but crude as in has crew. Yeah, I don't know why I felt the need to distinguish that. It does have some curiously apparently broken struts though. That's interesting. As well as drop tanks. Yes, one is an afterburner. Of course it is. And of course we have an air brake on the top, which would be handy if we ever wanted to slow down. Of course, why you would want to, I don't know. Not much ground clearance on the back though, so I was kind of paranoid about taking off. But once we're in the air, performs quite well. I think this is a very similar structure to the other one, actually. Overall, like the very similar wing shape and tail shape, although the wings are further back and it's heavier, of course. Ooh, it also has quite a good yaw control due to thrust vectoring on that engine. Although, I believe the other one also had thrust vectoring, but it just didn't have as much yaw control. I actually don't know why. I'd have to look into that a little closer, a little further. Let's go ahead and drop those in that general direction. Are we going to miss the building or hit it? Oh, just barely missed it. And I was not paying close enough attention to the way I was flying, so I kind of pitched up in a bad way. Fortunately, due to Kerbal Crash System being awesome, we survived that. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I have to show and say this time around. It's nice when there's that dirt kicked up from collision effects. See you in space. And that's my outro.